when you've lived one way, it is hard to shift and just have a new mindset, a new belief. And so internally, definitely a lot of questioning and like, what am I doing? Am I just headed down this path to hell? Like, what am I doing with my life? Navigating this whole chapter, there's been so much fear, something that expanded and opened my mind. I would have conversations with people and, something, I would say I'm from Utah, and they're like, oh, are you LDS?
Right.
Just kind of a natural. And so a lot of questions. And when I would share things, people would be like, wait, what? Like you actually believed that, or you actually feel that? And so it started giving me a different perspective and understanding of how deeply ingrained some of those pieces were for me. One night, woke up with a dream that just said,
Hey guys, welcome to the Conscious Flow podcast. We're your hosts, Kevin and Marley.
Hey guys.
Our guest today is Jessica. She's a psychosomatic practitioner, yoga teacher, and sound bath healer. Jessica, thanks for coming on the podcast.
yeah, thanks for having me.
Yeah, we'd love to know, just more about the different types of healing work you do, and a little more about you also.
Okay.
Yeah,
so I actually started my business as a nutritionist. My degree is in human nutrition. And as I started working with clients, just kind of realizing there was so much more than what people were eating, and started kind of delving into more healing and tools to offer them. And that led to kind of my own healing journey. And along the way, found yoga, psychosomatics, and have just kind of continued adding to that. Most recently, the sound healing.
because I've gone to 2 of them now, and just really put me in a really nice meditative and rejuvenating state. I think it was really cool.
Mm-hmm.
And then
I also experienced one of your sessions, your psychosomatic session, and I found it to be like really deeply transformational. I see why, like we've talked about before, how like it's almost like hard to put into words, like what psychosomatic is. I guess like from what I took away, it's like really deep emotional healing. Kind of reminded me of like therapy plus guided meditation plus like just like resetting your nervous system, or like deleting like the trauma from your past. Like, I don't know, how would you describe it?
Yeah, I think that's a great explanation. I do have a really challenging time because there's so many facets and ways that we can do a session. But really, psychosomatics, psyche is the mind, the somatics is the body. And so it's really looking at how our experiences in life begin to, really how we interpret our experiences that we have, and how that then begins to show up in our body, in our patterning, and how we're showing up in our day-to-day life. It does begin to look at those patterns and kind of uncover some of those deep-rooted unconscious beliefs that are maybe driving our actions, and we can root those out and begin to replace those with some of the thoughts and beliefs that we do want, and it really begins to shift the whole trajectory of our life. And the other aspect is looking at the physical body, kind of looking at the alignment, looking at how you're physically showing up and correcting those misalignments. And that also, so it's kind of 2 parts. We need the physical piece, really working with the body, And then that mental piece, really looking at those unconscious beliefs, all of the underlying emotions, and working together. And I think that's kind of the confusion sometimes with psychosomatics. People have heard somatics a lot, and somatics is just of the body. And so a lot of times somatics is just movement, and it's not getting that deeper piece with the mind and clearing some of those beliefs and thoughts, and still incredibly valuable and very needed, because so many people are so disconnected from their body. But I really love that psychosomatics adds that layer in. So it's just really a deep healing. So I went to Costa Rica for my training. And as part of that, we call it a full body reading. So really looking at your posture. And when I showed up, my upper body was leaning clear back, and then had just kind of a tilt with my pelvis. And so in that awareness and learning how to hold myself in alignment, so we always start at the feet. Everything begins at the feet, and getting the feet in alignment. Then we work with the knees, the hips, the pelvis, the shoulders, getting the head on straight. So as we move through the body, get that physical alignment, how you're showing up begins to shift. So for me, I was really wanting connection with other people, and just feeling like when I would show up with someone, there was just this distance, and I didn't understand that. I couldn't understand what I was doing or why it felt that way. And so with that, looking at how I was holding back, and it was like this fear. And so when people were interacting with me, they're like, oh, she's afraid, I don't want to interact.
Oh, okay.
And so as I learned to lean into life, and really be in alignment within myself, even within that 2-week training, my interactions with people started to shift, and I started to have deeper connections, just started showing up differently. People were receiving me differently. And so that's kind of that physical piece. It also can relate to pain. I work with a lot of people that have physical pain. And as we look at where the pain is, what the emotion is underneath that, and, similar to the session we did, then we can kind of clear those. And a lot of times people's pain that they've had for a long time, chronic pain, can go away.
I mean, I feel like I experienced that, like certain areas of tension in my body just disappeared. And I remember trying to talk to Kevin about the session, and I was like, whoa, I actually don't even want to talk about it, because it felt like we'd gone through these maybe traumatic or even semi-traumatic memories from my childhood, even my past lives, because I remember my past lives. And so that was really wild to have our gifts come together in that way. And I felt the physical shift. I destroy it. You have and just laying down and having you speak aloud, or I repeat after you, and speaking aloud, just these words to I destroy this, and I was like, whoa, I feel like I'm doing energy work right now. But it was so simple, just laying there and speaking it.
Yeah, and I think the beauty is, while you do kind of bring up some memories, you don't have to go into the whole memory. You don't have to, with traditional therapy or something, you have to talk about and bring up, all of that. And with this, it's just understanding the feeling and where that lives in the body, and from there we can move in and shift it. And so it's really less traumatizing, a little more friendly for people that do have deep trauma.
What was that that like for you when like some past life stuff came up for me and you just like kind of rolled with it? Like, did you, like, was that like strange for you, or were you like questioning if that would work?
Because you did Marley's past life.
Just a couple weeks ago. And so having that experience, I think, was really helpful when that did come up for you. And I think treating it similarly to how I would anything, but there was just some insights that came, let's use this languaging or move in this direction. And it was really powerful to see. I could see just kind of the physical shifts as you were speaking and working through it. And I think there was a part of me that was like, okay, is this going to work? Will this help? But I could see the physical relief happening as we were processing through, and so I just kept trusting. Okay, let's continue.
Had you felt like you had past lives before that, or you were just seeing if they would come up during this?
It like just came up for me.
During the session,
So like that's why it was like the first time that it like happened for her. Like that generally that doesn't come up.
No, it's not. I've not worked with someone in that way before, but it was really beautiful.
Right. Yeah. Like, cause that's like the work that I do is like past life healing, and it's because I have to like heal my own past lives. I've been on my own past life journey of remembering and healing my past lives, and so it was just I knew that like it works the same healing past lives as it does with current life, and so I was it just that was a really cool experience. And it's like to this day, like this moment, I feel like it's cleared, like it did what I needed it to do, and I'd been struggling to clear it on my own, and so it was really nice to just like be walked through it. And
Well, it's also interesting what you said about posture, because like as you were saying that, I'm like becoming aware of my posture. I'm like, okay, am I hunching or sitting up? And then I actually notice my posture when I'm walking too, like when I'm walking around the North Shore, if I feel like I want to just be in my own bubble or something and I'm walking by people, I'll notice I'm just hunching over a little bit and making myself smaller, you know? And then sometimes I really notice that, like, okay, am I hunching or am I really standing up straight? Sometimes I walk around trying to stand up really straight and I almost feel weird. Like I feel like I'm like
robotic a little bit.
Yeah. But I do notice even based on my mood, if my posture's changing. So
I think that's one of the things that I really love about psychosomatics, is that it is really a deep awareness, and it's always done with love and compassion. So there's no judgment or kind of criticism, and so it's always looking at the body's intelligence. So like you just said, when you want that kind of bubble or to close people off, your body's naturally moving in that way. And so it's being aware of that, because sometimes what happens is we do those things but we're not aware of it, and so it's impacting our connection or relationship with people. But when we have that awareness and we can trust that, my body's doing this for a reason, and you can start to tap into, okay, I notice now when I lean back, okay, why am I feeling afraid right now? What am I trying to get away from? And I can lean back in and really feel what's going on in my body, and it starts that conversation within myself and just brings that deeper awareness, that deeper connection with myself.
Like, are you supposed to just kind of keep your feet apart? Because you said it all starts at the feet. Is that
I think how we show up, there's always a reflection of how we're feeling, and so it's not like you have to sit, just proper with feet apart, shoulders back, all the time, or be in a certain position, but it's really that, I think, that deeper awareness of why am I showing up this way, and especially I think the feet when we're standing and walking, if our feet are out of alignment, if one foot is pointing out, if a foot's pointing in, or we've got a really wide stance or a really narrow stance, what's going to happen over time is that's going to impact our other joints. It really alleviates a lot of pain and just misalignment for the rest of the body.
That makes sense. Wow. And I guess I'm thinking, like, on one hand, like, your posture might reflect, like, your emotions in that moment, but also, like, it gets impacted.
Mm-hmm.
Or, like, how am I...
It's kind
like
of
your
layers.
Emotions get impacted by
Yes.
your posture, too. It's reminding me of, like, gosh, many years ago, my acupuncture healer, she was like, you need to sit with better posture. And at that time, I had, like, a lot of, like, really intense knots, like, physical knots in my body from, like, just all this, like, buried trauma, I guess. And I literally was like, what do you mean? Like, I can't even sit upright. And now, like, after doing so much healing work, like, actually for me, like, it was a lot of, like, past life healing, but, like, emotional healing work, I can, like, sit up straighter. And, like, I don't feel like I have to, like, hunt. Like, it almost was like I couldn't physically sit up straighter.
Yeah.
Do you ever see that in people?
Yeah, so it works both ways. We look at the emotions and uncover what's underneath. We work on the physical. It can bring up those layers of emotions. And so it's like, okay, now we're ready to look at this and begin to uncover this layer. And so, like, for you with those knots, if you physically couldn't do that, then we would want to look at, like, okay, why? What is impacting that? What is underneath that? And as we begin to look at that, then the physical can begin to shift and change. And so it's that both and. You kind of have to have both together. Yeah.
That makes sense. I would love to know, like, what your journey looked like of, like, waking up and like just your healing journey and what got you on this path. And
yeah, and like where did you live before Hawaii? if you want to talk about that also.
Yeah, so it's kind of a loaded question. I feel like I've lived like 4 different lives. A lot of aspects, a lot of pieces to my journey. But I grew up in Utah in a small town west of Salt Lake and lived there until I graduated high school. And then I moved to Indiana and went to school there and ended up getting married quite young. I was 18, a month before my 19th birthday, and had my son a couple of years later. So I have 3 children that are grown adults now, and so for a long time I was a mom. We lived in Indiana, Illinois, Virginia, back in Utah for a time, and I went through a divorce after 10 years of being married, and, had not worked, had to figure out how to support these little kids and myself, and just went into this survival mode for a long time. Started having masses. I had a mass in my arm, in my neck, in my breast, and in my stomach.
Is that like kind of like a cyst, or? like?
They were lymphatic. And so the doctor basically said, if you don't change something in your life, and at the time she told me this, my kids were, in their teens. I had gone back to school, getting my degree in nutrition, getting my bachelor's degree, and I was working 2 or 3 jobs and, trying to raise 3 kids on my own. And she said, you've got to figure out a way to reduce the stress in your life. You've got to do something different. Go get a massage, go to yoga class. And I just looked at her, I said, I don't think you heard me. I am in school. I'm taking 21 credits. I'm working 2 to 3 jobs. I have 3 kids that I'm, trying to be at all their events, trying to help them with homework, fixing dinner every night. I go to bed at 2 o'clock at night, get up at 5 in the morning. I'm not sure where I fit in a massage or, this self-care.
Yeah, you were in like survival mode.
Total survival mode.
Where like a lot of people are living right now too.
Yeah. And so, physically my body was breaking down. And so I started doing yoga. That was kind of the first piece. And I just started watching YouTube videos. And half the time I was just in child's pose and I'd fall asleep because I was just so exhausted. And that was all I could do. But I noticed after a while that something within me felt different. And so then I started doing a little more yoga. And my situation changed and I remarried. We moved to this really beautiful property. That was a really beautiful healing space surrounded by these red rock mountains, and I had a huge garden. We had orchard, fruit trees.
Was this in Utah?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, in southern Utah. And so I, at that point, had taken a yoga teacher training. And so I started offering retreats just to expose people to yoga and share how that had helped me. And, I would offer fresh food and we would do some journaling, meditation, and yoga. And as I was doing that, just starting to realize I want to be able to offer people more. And so again, just kept, and I think I've always been just very curious. I love learning, just always wanting to know all the things. Mm-hmm. And so all of that combined, still dealing with some health issues from being in survival mode for so long.
Did you feel like you kind of got out of that survival mode now when you're on this bigger property?
No, because we started remodeling. We built a huge, 2,000 square foot barn. We remodeled the home, and so I was working, 8-10 hour days, hard labor. I was doing all the construction. It was just me and my husband, and so I had been working at a credit union and doing my business, as a health coach, just on the side, before we married. And I had felt like I had started kind of calming down a little bit. My system, was settling. I was getting into a good flow. And then we got married, moved to this property, and it was just a lot of intense work. We redid all the landscaping, just made it a really, really beautiful place. But my body was really taking, a physical toll, all that hard labor. And around that same time, I started hitting menopause, perimenopause. Mm-hmm. So that was another layer. And it was just like my body was saying enough. And so I started seeking out, other tools, other things to help me, to help the people that I was offering retreats to, and came across the psychosomatics. And I had finished my yoga teacher training, and after my yoga teacher training, my teacher asked me to train with her. She had an online program for women who had gone through betrayal trauma. And so I trained with her for another year and began to teach her course. And a lot of it was nervous system kind of regulation, interactions, between couples. And so that was a really big piece of my healing journey as well, because whenever you teach something, you have to really be understanding it and living it. And so I was really reflecting and looking at, okay, how am I showing up? How am I living these principles that I'm teaching these ladies? And if I'm not in congruence, if I'm not in alignment with what I'm teaching, how can I be teaching this? And so how do I get myself in alignment? How do I, be true to what I'm teaching? And so as part of that, I found this psychosomatic class online, and I took a couple of classes and was just intrigued and ended up signing up for the training in Costa Rica. And it really was so transformational. I don't know how to explain, for this, I guess, pretty sheltered girl from Utah to leave the country by myself and spend 2 weeks just really examining myself, how I'm showing up in the world, really looking at all of the things. And our first night there, there was a major earthquake, and everything around just was like shaking and rattling. And I thought, okay, this is it. I'm going to die. Like, what? And something like that really makes you evaluate your life and really look at, like, who am I? How am I showing up? What am I doing with my life? And so I went home, and all the people that knew me just said, you're different. Like, you look different. You seem different. There's just something different about you. And
what part of Costa Rica did you go to?
It was on Mount Chirripó, so it's kind of, I believe it's like central Costa Rica.
Okay.
But up in the mountains, very beautiful.
Like growing up in Utah, and then like your community there, were you like part of the church over there?
Yeah, so I grew up Mormon or LDS, and it was a big part of my life, both the community and the religious aspect, and really informed how I showed up in the world in so many respects. And I think just prior to going to Costa Rica to this training, probably about a year before, I had been having some questions about my faith, about my beliefs, and had been really sitting with that and just exploring, like, what does it mean if I'm not believing these things, or I'm not, fully aligning with this anymore. And I didn't know what to do with that, because the people that I had seen leave the church often went down, pretty destructive paths. And there was a belief with the church that, when you leave, you're kind of under the influence of Satan or the adversary. And basically you're kind of going to hell. Like, you're turning away from God and choosing a sinful path. And so I didn't want to do that. I'm like, I'm a good person. I want to be a good person.
Well, that kind of puts you in a fearful state too. You're like, if I leave, oh my gosh.
Well,
yeah.
Yeah. Of course, like, how do you walk away from that? I mean, that's intense.
Yeah.
Especially when, like, if your whole community's based around that too, then you're like, oh, everybody's gonna just think I'm gonna go down a dark path.
Yeah.
Right.
Yes.
And I think what's really scary is the whole, like, I don't really know all the beliefs, so, like, you can, like, let me know if I'm wrong here, but, like, the whole idea of, like, kind of you're condemned for eternity sort of thing, or like like it's not just like when you die you go back to peace, but it's like when you die you go to hell, right?
Yeah, and you, I was sealed in the temple, and so that means like your family will be with you. You'll be able to go to heaven, and there's different degrees of heaven. And because I was divorced, I already had felt like, wasn't going to make it maybe there, but at least my kids were still sealed to me. Like I was keeping my covenants. I was worthy to still go to the temple. And so when I went to Costa Rica, I think that was one of the first times that I'd really been, when I lived in Indiana, Illinois, Virginia, like I was around people outside of the church, but the church community was still a big piece and still a big factor in my life. And so I think when I went to Costa Rica, that was the first time that I really was exposed to a different way of living and being and believing. And a lot of those were questioned, and just in the training kind of asking me to really look at my beliefs, really looking at the fear and the shame, which is a big aspect of the culture. And there were just more questions, I guess, for me than answers. And when I came back, just realizing like I don't like feeling that fear, that shame. I don't like living through that lens. And so started kind of stepping back at that point, and unfortunately did lose a lot of friends, a lot of community, a lot of connections.
Right. And then, like, how much longer did you live in Utah after that?
Let's see. Like about 3 years.
Wow. So you like continued living there even though you lost a lot of people.
Did you find? I'm sure you found other community though, in Utah or not?
No, it was challenging in some ways. I didn't fully speak about it or let people know. I just kind of stopped going to church, and so I was still associating with some, some of the members, some of my community, and some of them didn't know because I still, was showing up in similar ways. And it's really challenging because when you leave, a lot of people are really angry about it. And so you'll have kind of this group that they've left, but they don't want to stop talking about it. And that's all they talk about. And they're really angry, and there's a lot of just feelings about it. And I'm like, that's not where I'm at.
Right.
And I don't fit in here with those that are still believing and going. And I just had a really hard time finding people that were in that middle ground. I don't have adverse feelings. Like there were a lot of really beautiful things in the church for me, for my children.
Can you tell me like what those things are? Because I feel like both me and Kevin haven't had a
positive association.
Well, I mean, I wasn't raised in the church. Like the only time I went to the church was with my childhood friends when I was having a sleepover,
I went to church a little bit growing up, but then stopped when I was 8.
Okay.
Actually, when my parents got divorced when I was 8, then everybody stopped going to church.
I mean, I think like for both of us, we kind of look at the church from the outside, and we're kind of like, how do you get caught up in that?
Yeah, well, I think like, do you remember how you joined the church, or were you at a young age? And
the positive
yeah,
aspects of it, and the negative maybe.
Yeah, so I think for me, my journey was a little non-traditional. Most that are in the church are just born into it, and their families are strong, and so you just go. My parents were very young when they had me. My mom was 15, my dad was 18, and my dad was a cowboy and just kind of partying, a little rough around the edges, so they were not going to church. And I think having a baby at such a young age kind of shocked them into, oh wait, now we have this other life to take care of, figure out, how to do this differently. And so when I was probably 4 or 5, they would drop me off at what they call primary, is the class for kids. They would drop me off at primary, and then I would stay and sit with a family for sacrament meeting, and then they would come pick me up. And for me, there was a lot happening at home, and so church felt like a very peaceful, safe place. And so that association, I think, very young, became kind of a safety net and something that I gravitated toward. And then as I got a little bit older, when I was 8, my younger sister was born, and my parents, were getting a little bit older then, I think a little wiser, and so they started going to church. And when I was 10, they were sealed to me and my sister in the temple. And I noticed big shifts in my dad when he would go to church. And so I think, again, it kind of reinforced that belief that this is a good thing, because my dad shows up in a much healthier way, when he is going to church. And so that kind of reinforced for me. And I had a lot of, I think one of the really beautiful things about the church is there is a really beautiful community. Like there are a lot of support at every age, stage of where you're at in the church. And so I think that was a big thing. And growing up in a small town, it's like, these are people, my grandparents were in our ward, like we knew the same people, like it's kind of just what you do, and it's known, it's familiar. And I think a lot of experiences, like I look at both for me, like girls' camp, the things that I learned there, the things that I learned, on weekday activities, different things like learning to camp and cook and, just even fun things. And same for my kids. When I was a single mom raising them, like I had a lot of support through the church for my kids. They had mentors and people that really stepped up and helped. And so I think that is probably one of the biggest, positive aspects.
That makes sense.
And then, just having something to anchor to when everything else feels uncertain and unknown in your life. Like just having something that, like, this is what I know. This is, what you've believed since you were little. It's kind of that anchor point. And so I think that's been something really challenging for me as I've gotten older and as I've left, is like, what do I anchor to now, and what are my values, what are my beliefs outside of what's been told to me that these are, your values or your beliefs, and that conditioning and
right. And then, like, what are some of the negative things about being in the church?
Yeah, I think one of the biggest things for me and really ultimately the reason that I stepped away is that fear and shame is so pervasive in everything that you do. It's all of your actions, all of how you move through life, you know.
Right. That's like kind of dysregulating for your nervous system.
Yeah.
Right.
And always trusting that someone outside of you has the answers. And so I think that was another big piece for me. Like, it was always, you know, the prophet or the scriptures or God or, you know, someone outside had more understanding and knowledge. And even if something in my system was like, that doesn't feel right for me, that doesn't seem right, it was like, but this, you don't question, you know, this.
Yeah.
And if you do, then you need to check yourself, because why are you out of alignment? What are you doing wrong? How are you sinning? How are you not...
like there's something wrong with you.
Yeah.
If you're questioning.
Yeah.
Whoa.
Yeah.
Yeah. I see. So it's like, gosh, that's a lot of layers. Like, I see the good part of it. And I mean, that's something I feel like I've struggled with, is like the community aspect of like going on my own spiritual journey. I've been like alone through a lot of it. And I've connected with people online all over the world, because just finding like the direct people who really I resonate with and we share beliefs, like they're not in, well, now they are, because we like moved to a place where I feel like we're finding people like you, and I'm like blown away by where we are right now. But where I used to live, and like just through my journey of like not having a solid community that I can go to, like what you just described, like that alone I can see can be like enough reason to make someone want to be part of the church. And I think, yeah, like that's something I've been like praying for, is like more community for like people who are like not part of the church, you know, like who are, you know, following their own paths, like following their own like inner guidance. And wow, there's so much to unpack. I mean, there's like, Kevin, do you have any questions about like what
Oh yeah. Well, I guess I'm also curious, like, so you lived there for 3 years and you kind of went through this departing of the church and then still trying to find community. But yeah, I think it would be challenging because at least so far the people we've met from Utah, that say they're from Utah, it seems like, and I don't think it's an accurate poll, but it seems like everybody we've met from Utah is currently part of the Mormon community, or they left, or it seems like there's nobody that hasn't, you know, been a part of it. But then, yeah, so I guess I'm interested to know, like, what made you ultimately decide to, like, live in Hawaii?
Right.
Yeah, that is a great question. So when I went through my divorce, I needed a safe space to be. And for a while, I was living with my sister. She lives in an RV, and I was living in a tent with my 2 dogs. And in the desert, we were mostly in Nevada area, just because it was warmer. It was the middle of winter, so Utah, even southern Utah, you know, gets chilly. Some areas get some snow, and so just a little farther down, you know, it was a little bit warmer. And so just navigating all of that, I had a friend that heard about my situation and said, hey, I have a home in Hawaii. Would love to have you come stay for a month, just, kind of get back on your feet. It's a really healing space. And my sister was like, go, Jess, I've got the dogs, just go, you need this. And so I came and spent February, and the days were coming closer to me leaving, and I just could not leave. And there was supposed to be someone else coming into the space. And, my sister was watching my dogs. I was like, I got to get back home. And the day before, my friend called me and said, hey, the people that were supposed to come canceled. Any chance you would want to stay? And my sister had just told me earlier that week, if there's a chance for you to stay, you stay. Like, I've got the dogs, don't worry about it. So I said, okay, I'm going to stay. So I ended up staying through March. And then I went back home, went through, some of the legal aspects of the divorce. And at that point, really had no idea where I was going, what I was doing. I started looking at places there in southern Utah, started looking for jobs, trying to figure out what I was going to do. And everything in my soul was just like, don't do this. Like, what are you doing? And
right. Well, hadn't you kind of done that before in the first divorce? You, so it was it? Did it feel like it was going to be a repeat?
Yeah,
almost?
Yeah, a little bit. And just feeling like while I was here those 2 months, I made so many beautiful connections, and I think it was really something that expanded and opened my mind. I would have conversations with people, and something. I would say I'm from Utah, and they're like, oh, are you LDS?
Right.
Just kind of a natural. And so a lot of questions, and when I would share things, people would be like, wait, what? Like, you actually believed that, or you actually feel that? And so it started giving me a different perspective and understanding of how deeply ingrained some of those pieces were for me, and how going back felt like, just kind of going back to that mindset, going back to that environment didn't allow for expansion or growth for me that I really wanted. And so I was living with my other sister at the time in St. George, and one night woke up with a dream that just said, you're to write a book called Wahine Wisdom, and you're supposed to write about the aunties. So there was a group of aunties that I met here, and I spent a lot of time with them, and they were just very nurturing and loving, and gave me some great advice and things as I was navigating. And I was like, I can't do that. I'm a haole. I'm not a writer. I'm, all these things. And it just said, like, it was just this, I don't know how to describe it. I've not had anything like this before, but it was like this voice just spoke to me and just was like so clear and said, you need to go to Hawaii. You need to do this. And it wasn't something that I had contemplated. I never thought, oh yeah, I'm going to go live in Hawaii. I just thought, okay, I visited here. I loved it. It was great. But then I started looking and got paperwork for my dog done. Had asked my friend if there was any way I could stay at her place, and she was like, no, we can't have a dog there. But then she called me back a couple weeks later and said, actually, the landlord said, yes, you can move in. We'd love to have you.
Wow.
And so just kind of all the pieces fell into place. And so that's how I ended up back here.
Wow, that's a really cool answer, because I thought you were just going to say, just the warmer weather.
Yeah.
But I had no idea there's this book that you're meant to be
writing.
writing.
Writing the book?
I'm not. So I actually just had a meeting with Leah at the center, and we discussed it last week because it started coming up again. And I was like, I keep having this housing instability. Things are just not working out in so many ways for me, and I don't know why. And she said, come with a really clear intention. Let's talk about, what your intention is. And so my intention that I went to her with is, what is my purpose here on the island? And, why am I having all this housing instability? What am I supposed to learn from it? And so as we met and went through the process that she does, this dream and this remembering came back very strongly, and I shared it with her, and she just started laughing. She said, I don't think I've heard anyone have a more clear purpose and direction. I don't know why you're asking. So I think you know what you need to be doing.
She's so direct. I love it.
Yeah,
we'll have to interview her sometime.
Yeah, she's great.
That's amazing.
So we talked through some of my resistance, some of the beliefs that my words don't matter, that I'm not a writer. I am not Native Hawaiian. I don't there's so many reasons that I feel like I should not be doing this, but also really a deep desire to share the aunties' stories. They've had some just incredible lives. They've faced so many things, and they're so happy, and they have this beautiful community and just support one another, and really want to share some of the history, the language, their stories. And
Wow, and how did you meet them?
So through my bonus daughter, she was good friends with one of their grandsons. And so I had come here to visit her about 4 or 5 years ago, and was introduced to them then, and just had the best time. We went swimming with them, and I don't think I've laughed so hard. These older ladies that are just so wise, so fun, so incredible. And so we'd stayed in touch off and on since then. And so then when I came back, I reconnected with them, and I go to lunch with them every once in a while, and we go gamble at their senior center.
We
play this left-right center game, and it's really just fun. It's just a fun time to gather and get together. And
awesome.
Yeah.
I am excited for that book.
Yeah.
Wow. And I feel like you will bring a unique lens to it, and I think in a way it could reach a completely different audience because of who you are and your background, and maybe that's why it needs to be you, or it just, there's all these different reasons why maybe different people are meant to write about the same things or whatever, but I think that's really amazing and exciting.
So my next step is to go meet with the aunties and talk to them, and see if they'll be willing to do that, and to share my purpose, my intention, and Leah also said, share with them your fears and why you don't feel like you should, why you have not made progress in that, and just be really authentic and honest with them, and let them, be the ones that decide if they feel it's appropriate or not. And so that's kind of my next step.
In some ways, being almost on the outside, looking into their stories, it might make it, first of all, I'm thinking, would any of them ever write their own book? No. Probably not.
No.
And then the other thing is that when you're on the outside, it's almost you can take a bird's eye view of their stories and weave it all together into a book.
Yeah.
So I think that could be really cool.
Yeah.
Wow. How long have we been on here, Kevin?
Oh yeah, I usually have a little
we don't have
the time going here, but probably another, I don't know, 5 or 10 minutes. Yeah. I
wanted to ask, kind of circling back to the LDS a little bit, I just wonder, like, how was it, like, when you left? Like, did you ever wonder if you made a mistake? Like, were you ever, like, questioning it, or, like, did that fear ever try to, like, creep in, and were you, like, how, like, I guess, how do you feel now that you left, and, like, are there any regrets, and, like, how do you feel good about it?
Also, did the church try to, like, when you were, because, like, did they try to pull you back, or it reminds me of, like, I was canceling a subscription for protein powder. And when I canceled the subscription, they were like, it was like, are you sure you want to cancel? We'll give you $20 off your next order if you don't cancel. And I was like, nope, I'm going to cancel. And then it popped up again. Okay, are you sure? We're going to give you $25 off, actually. And then I said no. And then then a third screen popped up, and it said, are you sure you want to cancel? Daily habits make good changes. Or something. I was like, dude, I'm just trying to cancel my protein powder. But was there anything, like, from the church that was trying to reel you back in, or?
Right.
Yeah.
Externally and internally.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think both. And, you know, when you've lived one way for, 40, let's see, at that point, I'm 48 now, so like 47 years, when you've lived one way, it is hard to shift and just have a new mindset, a new belief. And so internally, definitely a lot of questioning and, like, what am I doing? Am I just headed down this path to hell? Like, what am I doing with my life? And a lot of fear. And I think especially coming here alone, not knowing anyone really, and just navigating this whole chapter, there's been so much fear. And so that old programming is really easy to shift back into and go down those thought paths. So yes, definitely a lot of internal. And then externally, as part of me leaving, like I mentioned, I lost a lot of friends. I lost a lot of community. I also, two of my daughters have asked that I not be part of their life. And my grandbaby, I haven't seen her since she was a month old. And so, that alone has made me question and, like, okay, if I didn't, would I be able to be a part of their life? Would I have that connection still? Would I be able to be there with them? And then before I left, some friends that I've had long term, a friend, I've been friends since grade school, and she's been there for me through every season, everything in my life. She's been an amazing friend. We went to lunch and I shared with her. She asked me directly where I was at with the church, and I shared with her, and she showed up with a lot of love, a lot of compassion and understanding, but I could feel her disappointment, and it shifted things in our dynamic. And another friend that had been my neighbor and a big support as I was raising my kids, very similar. She was pretty direct in her feelings about it, and basically, said, Jess, like, I feel like you're making a huge mistake and that you're misguided, and I just think you're making a lot of really poor decisions, and this is someone that I love and respect, and so that was really painful. And again, it has changed the dynamic between us. And when I do hear from some of my friends, and even some of the people in my life that are still connected with the church, there's a lens of like they'll send talks or messages, or it will be laced in conversation, and even though they're doing it in a loving way, there still feels like some of that judgment, or you know,
like is that taught in the church to, if somebody leaves, like does the church teach you to try to reel somebody back in? Or then also like with the family not speaking to each other, that seems like a common occurrence. And is that something that is kind of like enforced in the church? It's like, okay, if your parent leaves, then you probably shouldn't talk to them? Or
no, not so much. It's more this belief that, like we talked about, that, you know, they're going to hell, they're sinning, they're going down a path that's going to lead them to unhappiness, that's going to lead them away from salvation, that is, and I think because I was there, as people that I loved over the years have left the church, and there would be this sense of like, I have to do whatever I can to get them back, because I want them to be in heaven with me. I love them, I care about them, and if they're making this choice, how do I get to be with them? And so a lot of times it's really out of this sense of love, this sense of duty of like, I know better, they're just misguided, they're just, you know, in this place in their life, they're making poor decisions. So if I try harder, if I reach out more, if I send these messages or these quotes or these, you know, or even guilt and shame, it's in the end going to help them to find themselves and to come back, so that they're not, you know, wandering lost and aimless in this dark path.
Right. And even like, I'm wondering if like the cutting someone off like that who leaves the church, like, could it also be like a protecting of their heart, like, oh, I don't get to be with you in the end?
When I think to fear, because okay, if I associate with them, if I start, you know, am I going to start going down that path? Are they going to lead me astray? Are they, you know, there's a lot of that, and I experienced that in myself with, like I said, with people that I had loved that had left the church, and it was like, oh, I got to kind of keep them at arm's distance, because I can't go there. I can't look at that. You know, I don't want to, I guess, be tainted or influenced. And so I think that's a piece of it as well.
That is so intense. And like, so now you're here and like, you're connecting with community, and gosh, now I'm like, I'm like wondering like, because we've connected a lot, and like I've wondered like I channel like extraterrestrials, and like like I do some like pretty out there stuff. Like I've had people from the church say that I like do devil's work, and like I have like, that's kind of my experience with the church has been like, you know, these are the kind, like, not that long ago, like my ancestors who like did my kind of work were burned at the stake for like doing this, and like and so like I guess just like, I don't know where I'm going with this. I'm just kind of like how is that like shifting that community that you're surrounding yourself with? And like I know like you've helped us connect with community here, like, and there are like amazing people around you. That doesn't like diminish everyone that you've like obviously like lost contact with at all. And like I guess I'm just wondering, like, how has that transition been, and how is it like connecting with people who like think really differently even from each other?
Yeah, I think there's been some very, very lonely aspects to this journey, and it's been challenging, and I do think there's been a lot of moments like, what did I do? What am I doing? But I think overall I feel such a deep peace, and like just a settling within myself that like I know that I'm where I'm supposed to be and what I'm supposed to be doing, and I keep having things show up in my life, just people that I meet, kind of these synchronistic things that happen that just keep informing me that I'm doing what I need to be doing, and I keep trusting that, and I feel very supported, and I think probably feel like I have a closer connection to spirituality than I have ever had in my life. Just a deepness and a richness, but it's very different than what I've experienced before. And as far as the people, I really love that there are so many different people with different views. I have friends that I've met here from countries all over the world. I have a friend in Switzerland and Germany, friends from France, Australia, just kind of all over the world. And I think really hearing and seeing different ways of being and thinking and navigating life has really helped me to see what else is out there, and to see, because I think that's a big piece of it, is like, okay, I've stepped away, I'm trying to navigate this, but this is the only lens that I know. This is the only path that I've walked. And so a lot of times I'm trying to figure out like, okay, what's next, or how do I do this in a different way, but I don't have any template for it, or any way to like, what does that even look like? How do you do it different, And so I think that's been the beauty of meeting all of these people, a whole spectrum of humans, like you said, that, are different in so many ways, cultural, just healing ways, just how they show up in life. And so it's been really beautiful for me to have these different experiences and be like, oh, okay, so this is a whole new way of being or thinking or doing. And so I think I have a lot of moments of just like my mind is like, I don't know how to even process it. I don't even know how to like.
Right. Well, you do seem deeply peaceful too, and I think that can happen to people that go through like traumatic experiences, and they can end up finding like deep presence and deep peace. And I think Marley and I can both really tell that you just have a very like peaceful presence.
Yeah. Thank you.
Yeah. And then I think I heard that you might be working with the church here, because we live like 15 minutes from, I don't know, like is that you that's working with?
Oh yeah.
Okay.
I mentioned that. There was just the event that you mentioned that you were doing.
Oh yeah, tomorrow. So there's there's a retreat. It's through BYU Hawaii. And they've asked me to come and share some of the psychosomatics, but within a context, certain language can't be used, certain things. So like you were speaking earlier, like Reiki, even some yoga is discouraged, because again, it's that seeking outside for healing, for answers, outside of the context of priesthood or the line of authority or the way that is believed through the church, and so I think it will be a unique opportunity to experience how that feels to share within a context, a little bit confined context, but still be able to share what I do, what I'm offering, and see how that is received.
Wow.
Yeah.
That'll be really interesting. And just like, wow. I feel like, I wonder if like coming at it from that angle of like what you're like the shifts that you've made within yourself, and then being able to bring that into like a community that's very like kind of closed off. I mean, Kevin and I have even talked about like, could I offer healing work to someone in the church? And I asked you about it, and you were like, probably not.
So they discourage Reiki, pretty much.
Yeah.
Like probably everything I do would be like a no.
Yeah. It would be pretty cool though if you could work, instead of like, because right now you might be working with someone that's already left or that's leaving or whatever.
Yeah.
But like we were saying, it doesn't have to be this thing of like, oh, she works with the people that she's like almost like competing against, she's like on the other side. But we had this idea, we're like, well, what if she was working with, and so but then now we're finding out that's probably not.
Yeah, I think it depends on the individual and what their openness or willingness is, but I know that I don't know how long ago it was, there was a statement from the church that like to be worthy of a temple recommend, like you can't be associating with like Reiki or energy work or things of that sort, that it is really discouraged. And I think just that fear that it will lead you down paths, lead you away from the spirit, lead you away from...
It'll probably lead you away from the church.
Yeah.
Because it like opens up this whole different way of thinking. And that's true. I guess like we probably should bring this to a close pretty soon. I just kind of want to like, I guess, bring it full circle, kind of, just how, like, I don't know, you were talking about how you kind of, like, were in this, like, one way of thinking, and I think that's what's really blowing my mind talking to you is, like, it sounds kind of like in Utah, generally, like, most people are, like, in agreement with this way of thinking, and I could see how once you leave that, it would be really, like, hard to, like, learn how to be around all these people who think differently, and, like, oh, it's okay that we all think differently, when, like, if you're someone like me who's, like, raised out of the church, like, there's a lot of people who think really different. So, or even just, like, maybe not living in a place like Utah, like, I guess, I don't know, but that's just something that, like, really stuck with me through all of this. It's just that, like, I feel like what is really valuable is, like, to learn other people's perspectives, and, like, that's actually something I feel like we're taking a lot away from this podcast, is, like, interviewing people and learning other people's perspectives. And there's, like, just so much wisdom to it. And so, yeah, I think that was, like, a really interesting point that you made, that you're, like, now you're connecting with people all over the world who are just, like, have all these different perspectives, and I just don't think that they have to be, like, right or wrong, you know, like they kind of all link together. And I found that really interesting with sunset therapy, sitting around a table with all these different healers. Some of them are like licensed therapists, and some of them are like massage therapists, and like, you know, psychosomatics and like energy work, and like it was just really interesting because I was sharing my work with everyone, and like the therapist, like the licensed therapist, was like basically saying, they were like, well, we basically do the exact same thing, we just use different word choice. And like that was just like really fascinating. And I think word choice also is a huge factor in like just listening and like learning different language that people use and like seeing the similarities. Anyway, I just went on a
yeah, well, that's one of the things we love about this island in particular, is there's people from all over the world, you know, and everybody's super welcoming. So
that was just like a reflection.
Yeah. Well, and I think that is one of the beautiful things that I've learned, is that there are, even with all of our differences, there are so many things that we have in common and that can bring us together. And so, you know, I think especially in our world today, there's so much division, so much like conflict, so much pulling us apart. When we do really have an open mind and try to understand and want to listen to someone, there's typically more unifying and that we can find in common than would pull us apart. And I think it's just taking that time and that willingness to understand and be present and listen and you know, really explore something different.
Yeah, and I think that's like this, maybe the scariest thing about the church, is that they're creating this like barrier, this like divisive barrier between like people who are in it. They're not allowed to like seek really outside perspectives and like see those different perspectives. And I think that to me is like the biggest problem with the church. And that's what's like scary, is like automatically once you like step away and decide to like look at things different, you get like shut out. And like that's division, like that's not love, like that's not like acceptance of all people. And like, you know, like calling it love, and like when it, like, you know, there's just like really look at it, like is that really like love? And like
and then do you have like a website or something you want to share it?
I'm in the process of trying to redo it and rename and all the things, but right now it's Joyful Balanced Health. That was what I started with as a nutrition coach, and it's kind of followed me through, but I think I'm ready for kind of a rebrand, reorganizing. But yeah, right now it's joyfulbalancedhealth.com, and I have Instagram that's the same, Joyful Balanced Health. And
cool. And we'll link that below. And then we should probably wrap this up before we run out of memory on the SD cards. But thank you so much, Jessica, for coming on our podcast.
Yeah, thank you for having me.
Thank you.
Cool.
For being here.
All right. Peace.